everybody. Welcome to InPsightRadio. I am your host, Danielle Egnew, and you are a fly on the wall to everywhere. How is everybody? Okay, I am so excited. I know I'm excited every show, but I am really excited. I'm really excited. I'm excited because we are barreling right down to the Christmas holiday, and this particular podcast is being recorded on the solstice. So, I mean, it's early and it's pitch black outside in Montana. So this particular podcast is being recorded on December 21st of 2018. So happy Yule, everybody. And what does that mean? What does it mean when we say happy Yule? Well, the reason I get excited about Yule, and the reason I get excited about Christmas time and Hanukkah time and Kwanzaa time and all of these incredible holidays is because we are barreling down to the solstice, to today. And why am I excited about that? Well, I'll tell you why. Because the winter solstice is a time when our ancient cultures would gather around, and they would gather family and they would light candles. And you've heard of the old, put the Yule log on. We'd put the Yule log on because it was all about creating light during a time of the year when it was the darkest night possible. Yet our ancient cultures, they didn't look at it like, oh, geez, it's the darkest night possible. Oh, how dark is the night? Oh, I'm very dark. I'm very goth right now because it's really dark outside. They looked at it like, wow, this is the turning point of our seasons. So I absolutely love the energy right now on December 21st because also we've got this humongous full moon in Cancer, and I've got a Cancer rising. So I am so puffed out. I'm so puffy. And no, I am not saying I'm retaining water. Okay. I feel full of love. I feel the spirit of peace ramping in to the people of the earth. And you guys know, come on, I'm sorry. I'm a little bit of a cheeseball. Okay. The spirit of peace and I, we're really good pals. I know that makes me a dork, but hey, you know, it is what it is and I own it. So as this entire time frame is coming down onto us, this beautiful full moon in Cancer tonight, which we're going to feel the effects of for the next several days, this full moon in Cancer is saying, how do you wish to go forward with your home, your hearth? Tuck yourself in. Know what is sacred to you. Understand that which gives you the greatest joy. And dang it, if you have anything great to drink, drink it. And if you got anything sweet and awesome to eat, eat it. It's Cancer moon. Just saying. So being able to enjoy these energies are part of why we have chosen a human experience. And the fact that this podcast gets to be recorded on December 21st makes me very excited because I get to talk about rebirth and renewal, because every single day after today, the world is going to experience more light until we hit that fall solstice and it starts to turn all the way back around. So what's so fascinating here is that the promise for light to come is well beyond our willingness to participate with the promise. It's a nature thing, okay? It's just going to get lighter. And if we could view our own lives in this same way, like, wow, okay, well, things may be in the crapper right now. It's the holidays and I don't have any friends or family around, or it's the holidays and I'm really behind the eight ball financially here. I mean, whatever it is, if it's got you down at this time frame, first of all, know that my pal, the spirit of peace, is here to hang with you and to understand that things just don't go well sometimes, yet that spirit is there. Secondly, that quantum field is there for those of you scientifically minded folk that supports healing during this time frame, okay? Secondly, we're in the solstice. So this promise of light to come is huge. It's huge. And the ancient cultures literally would get around, and again, they'd light candles, they'd have a Yule log, they would eat grand feasts of roots and dark-colored meats and really just savory things that came from under the ground to really it just emblazoned into the consciousness how it feels to be in the underworld of the soul in order to come up later. And this underworld of the soul isn't a bad place. It's all about being tucked in, and we're tucked in and puffy in Cancer moon. My head is flying off. Whoa! So, it's all about just feeling super safe at home. And there are so many people that don't feel safe in their homes. And there's so many people who don't have a home. So as we continue on in this podcast, just put into your auric field, put into your prefrontal cortex, put into the quantum field, blessings and just love and peace for all those folks out there who may be feeling agitated because of this Cancer moon, because their home and hearth isn't where they want it. And being able to flood this amazing quantum field with love. And I'm just flooding it out there. I've got enough love for you guys. I've got enough for you gals. I've got enough for every single cell of this planet. I've got enough love. And I'm just going to pour it into the quantum field on this podcast. Because during this solstice time, we are being shown by the basic, I guess you could say, functions of nature that we will never stay in darkness. Not unless we choose to. We could always choose to. Yet the natural course of things, we call it the pendulum effect, swings from light to dark, or good to bad, or happy to sad, or however you want to look at it, we swing around. Yet nature dictates we're never going to stay in one place. We just won't. So if you're listening today and you're in a bummer spot, first of all, I'm so sorry. I really, honest to God, am. I truly mean that. There is nothing worse than coming up on a holiday period and just feeling lousy, just feeling like nobody cares and nobody's got your back and you're alone. And I want you to know something. You may feel alone. And the reality may be when you look around the room, there's nobody there that you can see. Your angels are always there. Yet know this. If you're listening to this podcast, we are connected through an electromagnetic signal. I am leaving part of my energy in this wave file, okay? And that wave file is even getting compressed into an MP3. So you're getting a compressed version of my energy that's getting released into the room, into your earbuds. And my energy is literally pushing particle matter either in the air between the earbud and your ear, or in your room, or off of your computer. And I am in the room with you. I'm sorry, if you're undressed, I am not looking. Okay, I'm not that kind of girl. Yet I am in the room with you because you're not alone. My energy is right with you. And I can feel, when you're listening, I can feel that back on my end. I always can tell when podcasts are being listened to and streamed and downloaded and all kinds of things, because I can feel that in my auric field. Because everywhere that I have an opportunity to leave music, to leave the spoken word, to leave a podcast, I literally leave a piece of myself, a piece of my energy. And I hope it's a clean piece, because I don't want to leave dirty, icky pieces all over the place. Yet if you're feeling alone in this time frame and you're listening right now, just know that you're not. Literally, the physics dictate, the spiritual physics dictate, I'm right there. So you're not alone. Okay. We're hanging out. It's good. It's all good. Literally. And why I say this is because I can feel so much pain out there amongst people, because I do have I choose to leave many messages out there, and folks attach to those messages, and I download what they're going through. And whether it's a blog post or it's somebody streaming the podcast, it's really quite something. And I want you to know during this solstice time that if you're feeling great, that's awesome. If you're feeling great, you know what? Close your eyes and just spill that great. Let your cup overflow all over the place into that quantum field, and let that flow out to all those folks who might not be feeling so great. So we're collectively doing this at the same time. And the voice that I'm using right now, that's the voice that's carrying this message to everybody who might need it. Because during this solstice, we're being asked to go within the self. And to go within the self and find those spots in the self that may feel like we need to bring them a candle, just a little bit of illumination. And in this big, full Cancer moon, we are able to create our own little cabin on the inside of ourselves. Okay? So I am just unbelievably, ridiculously blessed in my life at this point in my life. And I have not always been so blessed, and I am in a very blessed period. And I am thankful for that every day. I have gratitude for that every day. And I got up this morning in this solstice time frame, and it was pitch black outside. And I flicked on the Christmas tree lights, and I plugged in the hearth lights. And I'd love to say I made a fire, but truth be told, I flicked on the fireplace, and the propane came on, and there was the fire. And I'm sitting in all of this glow. And this message comes through these massive A-frame windows that we have on one side of our house that look out towards the mountains. And, well, they're massive to me. I'm sure, to St. Peter's Cathedral, they're not all that massive, but they're massive to me. And I felt this massive message through these big windows that was all about how important it is to give ourselves time to go inward and to really pay attention to what we need and to nurture the self. And I can have a tendency to go through world news first thing in the morning, which isn't the best thing to do. I want to check in on what's going on and pull the energies from the internet and see what's happening. I didn't do that this morning. I sat with the solstice energy. And the message was that we can literally create a sanctuary within us at any time, but we don't, because Mr. Frontal Cortex gets a little busy in that equation and says, hey, I'm up here. Pay attention to me. I got 2 lobes and they need a lot of attention. So when this message came through my heart, I looked around my room. And again, gang, this is like just mind-boggling blessings right now. And I'm in this house that occasionally I pinch myself and say, am I really in this house? But this beautiful lodge of a home. And this huge old River Rock fireplace over there. I mean, it literally looks like something out of a Hallmark Christmas movie, gang. And if I could have you all over for tea and toddies and dinner, I would have everybody over. It would be so much fun. It would be so much fun. And I'm looking around this home, which is this giant cabin lodge thing. And it just hits me, oh my gosh, this is like, as a Montanan, and I'll speak for myself, this is something I dreamed about as a little girl. It would be to have this tucked in, perfectly puffy. By puffy, I mean like fluffy, like if somebody could pack you in a fluffy puff box filled with cotton puffs and you're just perfectly balanced. Or if you could just lay in a perfect cloud and just be puffy and everything is soft and safe. That's what I mean by puffy. I don't mean I need to take a water pill. Okay? So, I'm in this room and it's so puffy, and I think to myself, my God, my inner 5-year-old is freaking out right now, is saying, I can't believe you live in this place that you always envisioned would be this sanctuary. And the reason I'm telling this story is not to, go on and on about my house, but it's to say that to see this space on the outside of me rather than the inside of me only was very humbling. And looking out at the sunrise over these mountains, and those mountains, our house looks south, and those mountains, that's Big Sky, that's West Yellowstone, that's Yellowstone Park. And I'm looking at this going, oh my God, the world inside of me now lives on the outside of me. And so what I want to share with you is if the outside world that you are living in every day, during this solstice, from the rest of the year, whatever, is not the world that you have on the inside. And sometimes we can't reconcile those things right away. Sometimes we never can. That's just the way it rolls. What you can have on the inside is a perfect sanctuary. And I call it the perfect mountain cabin. And that may be different. For you, it might be a Tahiti hut with endless coronas. I mean, who knows? For me, it's this quiet cabin space that's in the woods, and there's a fire crackling, and there's no Wi-Fi, and it's quiet. And you can hear the wind through the trees. And it smells like cabin. You know the cabin smell? Campfire and Cheerios and weird wood that's super old with 1950s lacquer on it. Cabin smell. So I picture this. And I let it live inside of myself. And we all have a sanctuary within. And the solstice time frame asks us to set inside of the self. And to put the self in that sanctuary, in that inner, soft, quiet place that's intimate. And this large, beautiful Cancer moon, as I was driving home from my beautiful space that I did readings in today, and this massive moon is just hanging low, and it is just behind this barely veil of mist and cloud. So the moon is soft. I mean, it's just this beautiful, soft experience on the solstice. And this energy, gang, is going to continue. This energy is going to continue for days. This energy is going to go for a week. You know, it's going to take us right into Christmas, which is one of the reasons why the Christmas holiday feels so puffy. And, you know, goodness knows that Constantine couldn't put Christmas right on the solstice because that was giving away too much power to those nasty pagans that they were trying to overrun. And we couldn't have that. So instead, we moved Christmas down a few days, you know, just to say, well, our sun rises too, but it's a few days later. And our sun's named not the sun, but, you know, Jesus. But it's a sun, S-O-N, not S-U-N. So they're pagan people. And one of the things I love about this time frame, the holiday season, is that the holidays are a grand amalgamation of many religions, and I talk about that a lot. Yet, before I get to that, I just want to summarize why it's important that we go inward during this solstice time. And if you're listening to this podcast not directly on the solstice, that's okay. That's okay. Not only is this energy going to keep going into the week, this information is valid all year round. It's just that we get a cue from nature to go within when the sun disappears. We get that cue. And so it's easy to talk about this today because it's fascinating to me how many world religions use light during this time of year. So you have the Yule log, Yule for the solstice. You have Christmas tree lights, which initially were candles, and they were symbols of the Son of God or the light of God onto the earth. You have the Hanukkah menorahs. You've got the Kwanzaa candles. I mean, we as people instinctually know, gang, tribally in our DNA, that this is the time frame to hunker in, to be with family or friends or whatever collective group you've got. If it's a kitty cat, if it's an animal familiar, if it's a birdie, that is 1,000% valid. And we share the light with the promise that the light is returning. So if you are struggling during this time frame, know that the light is returning and know that you are not alone. And know that many world cultures emblazoned in our flesh, in the very nature of our DNA, is that need to bring the light into the darkness, which I think is so super interesting. I mean, whether it's kindness, whether it's an act of kindness, whether it's, helping out at a soup kitchen, whether it's just calling your mom a little more often or calling your dad a little more often. I need to do both of those things, call both of my parents a little more often. So to have this awareness is to understand that the solstice, whether you're hearing this on the solstice or another time frame, is the call for all of us to go into the inner cabin, the inner sanctuary, the inner beach hut, and to be okay, to just be quiet with the self and listen to what's trying to happen. Listen and let the universe communicate with you so that you can bring the light to the next step of what it is that you're trying to accomplish. That's a huge thing. It's a huge thing. And we see themes of the light in many world religions. And one of my favorite themes of the light is, I grew up as a Christian person, and, this is certainly not meant as a sermon today, yet if you grew up Christian, you heard about the three wise men. I mean, and honestly, I have one of those. It's actually a dollar store crush. It really is. But I got my dollar store crush on my beautiful hearth, and I got my baby Jesus and all the wise men. And I used to love this thing, where the manger, you put it under your tree or whatever. And my parents, when I was growing up, my family was Catholic. And so things were a little more traditional spiritually. And you can tell I've branched out a touch since those days. Yet I enjoyed the crush. I enjoyed the Jesus story. I enjoyed the baby Jesus story. And I was fascinated by those flippin' wise men. Who the flip were these people? And they were all, and it was the only person of color in the entire creche scene when I was a child in the 70s were the wise men. You had an Asian person, you had an African American person, or an African from Africa person, and usually just some very odd colored reddish person. I don't know what ethnicity that person was supposed to be, maybe from India. And I was obsessed with the wise men. Well, some of you may know that I have done pastoral work. And again, this is not you guys, this isn't a big religious thing, but just go with me here, okay? Just follow me for a second. I've done pastoral work. And when you do pastoral work, obviously I'm a very, very outside the box pastor. Yet when you do pastoral work, you stick your nose in the book, which people live by, and, people call it the Bible, because you want to know why people are pulling phrases out of this Bible and beating each other up with it. Why are you turning this book into a weapon? That's creepy. Isn't it supposed to be about peace and love and harmony? What's going on, man? And so I did a lot of biblical study, right? And not because I was a Bible banger, but because I really couldn't figure out why people kept taking this stuff out of context and whacking each other upside the head with it. I'm like, why are you doing that? That's not even in the original Greek. What are you doing? That's so weird. So I became deeply fascinated with how we translated the Christian Bible. Now, had I been born Muslim, perhaps I would have gone and done the same thing with the Quran. It's just, I'm an extremely curious person. All right. So I really wanted to know about the wise men. And so I researched the dickens out of the wise men and realized that there was only one book in the Bible that actually talked about them. One book, only one. And then I realized that a lot of books had been taken out of the Bible. And then I really started researching these guys and found out some unbelievably mind-boggling information about the Magi, who by today's Christian standards were wild occultists. I mean, we're talking hybrid astrologers that had a baby with numerologists and maybe just dated for a short amount of time a bunch of psychics. That was the Magi. And then I found out that we get this idea of the three wise men, There wasn't really anywhere that talked about just three of them, nor that they were men. So I did a ton of study about this and came to find out some tremendous information that will blow your mind, including what the actual Magi saw, because apparently it was scribed and it's in the vaults of the Vatican, and a scholar ran across it. And I mean, if I was the Vatican, I'd stick that sucker right down in the vaults too, because it talks about the baby Jesus in a very non-traditional way from the perspective of the Magi. So I found this so fascinating that when I was still living in my hometown of Billings, God bless you, Billings, I miss you, I love you. You're just down the road an hour and a half, but still. I was doing pastoral work at the Unity Church there. And if you're familiar with the Unity Church, it's way outside the box. It's basically a metaphysical organization. And it's all about transcendence and metaphysics. And, when they talk about Jesus, it's about Jesus the metaphysician, whatever. So again, this isn't about religion. It's about the fact that I got a chance to present at Christmas an entire talk, because I was the pastor on deck that Sunday, to actually get out there and tell people what the Magi actually were and how they actually related to humanity. And then I got to go one step further and tell people what they said the baby Jesus was, which is so flippin' rich. And it really opens up the whole can of worms on the Christmas stories. So today, because we're in the solstice and we're ramping in to this holiday, I realize everybody listening is not a Christian. I realize that people here who listen don't necessarily even celebrate Christmas. I recognize that. And one more time, I just want to make sure that I'm saying this isn't a proselytizing broadcast. I want to share with you the message that I gave, really a year ago about the three wise men at the Unity Church, because I couldn't recreate this if I tried. And I am so grateful that all these angels were working with me, as they always do as a channel, for this particular message. And I was so grateful to Unity, because Unity, again, is super outside the box. I mean, they're like way outside the box. So they had no problem with the message that came through about who and what the wise men really were and what the heck actually was baby Jesus, according to the scribes who actually wrote down what the Magi had to say. And here's the message. It's about the 3 wise men, right? The 3 wise men. Actually, we're going to learn about those wise men, what they actually were, who they were, and what they actually represent to humanity today, because it's kind of important. Did you know that we don't even know if there were 3? This is a true deal. We say the 3 wise men, but nowhere in Matthew, the only book in the Bible that talks about the Magi, only one book, the Magi, doesn't say how many wise men showed up. They said they brought 3 gifts, frankincense, myrrh, and gold. But they don't talk about how many wise men came. There could have been a horde of wise men. It could have been thousands of wise men. And they left 3 gifts. We don't know. The fact remains that Matthew is the only book that actually talks about the Magi. And I want to read this right out. I brought the book today, and you can always tell what I'm going to read. So it's such a giveaway. It's like, oh, she's reading today. Here we go. But Matthew 2 through 12, gang, is the only place that we actually hear about the Magi in the entire Bible. Yet don't you think it's wild? Think about this for one moment. There's only one place they're mentioned. We know nothing about them, yet they are such a huge part of the Christmas tale. I mean, you've got these incredible statues carved of wise men. You've got Hallmark movies made about the wise men. And of course, we make 3. We assign 1 to each gift, even though it doesn't say there are 3. Yet think about this. Why would these central figures become so incredible over the years when they're only mentioned 1 time? And they're not even that central to the story. They're a bunch of dudes who were hanging out, and they could have been women too. They say the Magi, the Magi, the Magi, which means praise silently in the ancient Aramaic from which it was transcribed. So honestly, there could have been wise women who came. We don't know. We don't even know how many came. But why do we keep fixating on these figures that we know nothing about? Well, check it out. Matthew 2. Now, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, and Herod was this bitter dude. I mean, Herod was extremely bitter. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Sorry, Herod. He was just not very beloved, and he was kind of a cruddy king. And he had a bad personality, and he was awkward. And then all of a sudden, this king of the Jews was being born somewhere. He's like, come on, I can't even get good press on a good day. And now there's some baby who's upstanding me in all the headlines. So Herod was a little sideways to begin with, okay? So anyway, in the days of Herod the king, it's okay, Herod, you still made it into the press. You're good, you got it. Magi from the east arrived in Jerusalem, saying, where is he who's been born king of the Jews? And it doesn't say this in the Bible, but you can just see, Herod just bursting capillaries, just pop, pop, pop. For we saw his star in the east and have come to worship him. When Herod the king saw this, he was troubled. He probably spit food and smelled and shrieked, because that was Herod's deal. And all Jerusalem with him, gathering all of the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They said to him, in Bethlehem of Judea, for this is what has been written by the prophet. By the prophet. This is what has been written by the prophet. Keep in mind, this is the Magi talking. Okay? So they weren't Jews. They weren't even Christians, which didn't even exist yet. Keep in mind, Christianity is the crazy offshoot religion from Judaism. All right? So this is what they're saying. They said to him in Bethlehem of Judea, for this is what has been written by the prophet. So the prophet of whomever was their religious doctrine at that time. And you, Bethlehem, land of Judah, are by no means least among the leaders of Judah, for out of you shall come forth a ruler who will shepherd my people of Israel. Then Herod secretly called the Magi and determined from them the exact time the star appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, go and search carefully for the child, and when you found him, report to me, so that I may come worship him with an axe and a cleaver and some duct tape, because I'm Herod. After hearing the king, they went their way, and the star, which they'd seen in the east, went on before them until it came and stood over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with joy. After coming into the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they fell to the ground and worshipped him. Then, opening their treasures, they presented him the gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh, which we've all heard about. And having been warned by God in a dream not to return to Herod, the Magi left for their own country by another way. And that is all we know about the Magi. Until a wonderful scholar named Robert Landau went poking through the ancient Vatican vaults. And who's ever been to the Vatican? Anyone ever been there? It's cool. I've been to the Vatican, and it was quite something. Of course, I didn't go into the vaults. They would never get me out, and that would be problematic. However, while I was there, you could feel all of this information and antiquity. And the Vatican vaults held a book called, it's called Revelation of the Magi. And so Robert Landau translated this book, and it was again written in Syriac, which was an ancient form of conversational Aramaic during the times of Jesus, okay? So here's this book sitting down there, all about the Magi, just kind of stuck in the vaults. And what was fascinating about this is it was the wise men's personal testimony that had gotten scribed down the years, just like the Bible. Remember, Jesus didn't write the Bible. People who hung out with Jesus later told stories, and 100 years later, somebody wrote those stories down. Okay? So the Magi got written about kind of in the same way Jesus got written about. And what's so cool is that the wise men's personal testimony was visiting with Jesus, and the text displays a much more tolerant attitude of early Christianity towards other religions. This whole idea that Jesus is the only way and might is right and will kill you if you're not a Christian, that came later with the franchising of Christianity when they found out there was a lot of money in that. But originally, that's not what was going on. Originally, the idea of the Christ consciousness was that all could come to God through light. And that's what's fascinating about the Revelations of the Magi book. So this is actually, I'm going to read here from Brent Landau. These are his words. He says, the Magi's star is different. This is so cool. This is so cool. The Magi's star is different. It descends from heaven and transforms into a small, luminous being. It's not quite a star, not exactly human either, but something else, a star child, if you will. Surprisingly, however, the star child tells them that his epiphany to them is only one small part of his revelation to the people of the world. And this is what was transcribed from Revelation of the Magi, with this being that was actually a star and kind of came down like some Steven Spielberg movie and formed into a little human, and this light glowy thing is talking to the Magi, okay? And it says, and I am everywhere because I am a ray of light, whose light has shone in this world from the majesty of the Father, who has sent me to fulfill everything that was spoken about me in the entire world and in every land by unspeakable mysteries, and to accomplish the commandment of my glorious Father, who by the prophets, not a prophet, not one religion's prophet, but who by the prophets of the world, Allah, the Buddhas, the Hindu prophets, the Jewish prophets, the prophets preached about me to the contentious house. Hey, humans, we're the contentious house. To the contentious house in the same way as for you, as befits your faith, it was revealed to you about me. Think about that. Now, this is a slightly different take than what we who have based our idea of the Magi and our idea of Christ and Mary. Obviously, Mary was pregnant, tromping across, on a donkey. I'm not taking that away from Mary. I mean, that was rough. Yet to see that there is this introduction of this being that is a star, that's not quite a person and not quite and it just starts talking, the star child. That's a pretty powerful vision, don't you think? And it's not to say that that star child couldn't have grown in a person and maybe merged with this body, or who knows what happened. It reminds me of a scene from Cocoon. It's completely cool. So you amalgamate all of this stuff. And Robert Landau goes on to say, further statements in the text, okay, reasserts Christ's boundless revelation to the world, that the revelation of the Magi reveals that Christ is actually the hidden source of all or most of humanity's religious systems. Now, that is not to suggest that all Muslims are secret Christians or Hindus are secret Christians. It's to suggest that the boundless, ever-loving Christ consciousness energy is so big that it does not belong to merely one religion, that Christ consciousness has come as a teacher over and over again to many religions, many people, and that doesn't take away from Christianity's Jesus one bit. You know, when we want to own God, we have to wonder what that deal is. Why do we want to own God, Christianity? No, God, that's my God. We have the right God. You don't have the right God. I mean, it's not a football team, people. Come on. My quarterback's better than your quarterback. Only the Super Bowl can prove that. And actually, it takes a team. So what we're looking at here is the Christ consciousness. Jesus Christ was a human being who came down in miraculous form, was a divine Son of God, as we are all children of God, and came with a grand lesson. Who is to say, and according to the Magi, this star child told them, I'm coming here now through the Jewish culture to teach as a rabbi this incredible stuff. I am the Son of God. Who's to say that Christ consciousness didn't come through the Buddha at one time and say, guess what? I'm coming to you, all you folks, to teach you the beautiful power of love. Hi, I'm coming through Muhammad to teach you the beautiful power. Folks who speak Arabic, here we go. God does not discriminate when the dissemination of love is at hand. So why are these Magi so rockin'? Because they are our singular evidence. And who is to say in the original transcriptions of the other Gospels that they weren't in there? Think about this a minute. And I know this ruffles the feathers for a lot of folks who believe that every word in this Bible is divinely placed here by God. And I'm not here to take away from that. I have a slightly different perspective on that. To say that God works through us, Mother, Father, God works through us for the good of the world. Mother, Father, God works through me to grab a pen and make notes. Mother, Father, God works through the people who wrote this Bible to transcribe these words. So then all these words, before they got stuck in the Bible, gang, they sat in front of a conclave several times. And the biggest one was in 1200 with Constantine. And Constantine sat there and said, show me what's in the book. What's in the book? Anything going to be controversial? Anything going to start fights? Anything going to challenge the monarchy? Oh, that and that and that, that's got to go. Is there anything else in here that might be just hard historically to prove? Well, that's got to go too. Let's just leave the main stuff. So who's to say that in the original books, and it's claimed that the Magi are not actually in any other Gospels but Matthew, and perhaps that's true. Yet I can't help but wonder if they're like, hey, these guys in here who aren't Christian or aren't Jewish and come from somewhere else with some vast knowledge that Herod summoned, this is going to really muck up the whole story if we have other prophets foretelling Christ as well as the Jewish prophets. So can we just get rid of that? Because that gets weird. That's going to get really confusing. We're already trying to teach a Son of God divine union here between humans and spirit, and we throw in other cultures, and this is going to freak everybody out. So we'll just leave it in Matthew. They'll miss it anyway. Wah, wah. It becomes one of the greatest things. Here comes these mystery of the wise men, frankincense and golden myrrh and their beautiful robes. And I'm dressed in honor of the wise men today. You may have gleaned that. However, when we look at further why these wise men are important to our Christmas story, is because Christ was born for the redemption of the world. Well, how do we redeem the world? We save the world by our redemptive acts. We change the world. And it's not to say that Christ isn't divine and that we shouldn't say, wow, you go, Jesus. I'm a crazy fan of Jesus personally. What a rabble-rouser for his day. He was stirring the pot and making headlines and homeless and everything. I mean, he was fabulous. That does not take away from the fact that we each have the Christ consciousness within us as well. So the Magi represent the mysticism of humanity. They represent the multiculturalism of this entire world. The Magi take the Christmas story that was so centrally located in one part of the world and in one culture and make it everybody's story. How cool is that? Yes, Christ, Jesus, the man, was a Jew born in Bethlehem and brought the doctrine of love to that particular culture. That star child was assigned to that culture at that time. How cool is this? This brings the Christmas story global, and it doesn't mean we're going to try to go and convert all the other religions. It means that we are brothers and sisters of all world spirituality. That's what the three wise men represent. That's why this is so cool. That's why I took 100,000 notes, because this is the coolest of the cool. Revelation of the Magi reflects, that's this text that I'm talking about that Robert Landau translated. It reflects early Christian attitudes towards other religions, which again, were very accepting, as was Jesus. Jesus never said, don't go talk to other people of other religions. Jesus said, be friends with everybody. Be cool. It'll work out in the end. That apparently was a little too simple for most. And again, it's important to note that Magi means to pray in silence. And they think there might have been up to 12 Magi. And the best part about this also is that the Magi came from a place called Shir. Now, if you read about the Magi, you know, it's very popular to see them coming. They usually come in dressed like these fabulous Moorish Arabs, you know, and they're all turbaned up and they're very stately. Shir was actually part of where we now call China. Because we talk about the Magi coming in from the land of silk, which was China. So what you've got is a section of, for all intents and purposes, Chinese astrologers and mystics coming a great distance. Now, I want you to think about where China is. Actually, here, let me turn the globe around. Whoop! Where China is and where the Middle East is. That is one heck of a haul on a donkey. That's a heck of a haul on Delta Airlines, okay? So you think about these mystics, and we don't know how many, and we don't know even if they were men or women. We just know that they were mystics who came across this massive trek to confront a star child from a completely polar culture in China. Think about that. Now, why is that part of the story important? Well, how many people are going to get on a horse and ride across a continent? Probably not many. And you're not going to do that. Yeah, maybe 3 apparently, or 12, or maybe there was a group. Maybe it was a caravan for hope. But this also lays, if you want to use the word credence or awesomeness or a foundation to the Christmas story. Because we're not taught fully about the Magi. We just know Mary got pregnant and poor Joseph was like, oh Lord, this is going to be bad press, but we'll get it to Bethlehem and get the baby out and we'll make it happen. But we don't hear about, well, you know, can you imagine this from Joseph's perspective? Think about this. I mean, this poor guy, thank God an angel came and said, dude, take a chill, it's fine. Your reputation won't go down the drain. You're not going to be stoned to death. It's good. Go be with this woman. Because Joseph is like, really? She's telling me she got pregnant by God? Who says that? She's supposed to be my wife. She's crazy, God. And God's like, no, she's not. But that's easier to explain to you, Joseph, than she's going to house a star child who's neither human nor flesh and comes down from a star and sounds like something from E.T. So let's just go with this and you'll be fine. Go to Bethlehem. Have the baby. And then this majestic group of people show up from China who knew about this being of peace because their prophets said so. That's huge. That is huge. That's why I get excited about the Magi. I mean, it's cool enough that Jesus is Jesus to us. But who was Jesus to these people? Who was this bringer of love and light to these people who came all the way from China. Somebody pretty darn important to make that trek on a horse, or a camel, or a donkey, or whatever they were riding. That's huge. So when we today think about who are we in the world as we go forward to bring the concept of love, who are we? We are all the Magi. We are all the mystics. We are all the multicultural facets of the Christ walking on this earth, coming with our own vision, coming with our own understanding of that universal love. We are the global consciousness bringing love into the world. We are the ones erasing boundaries and lines and prejudice and religious iconology and taking away the boundaries of my God versus your God. We are the Magi. And what is gold and frankincense and myrrh? Well, obviously gold was worth something. They're probably looking at these poor young kids having a baby out of wedlock going, oh, they need a little help. Have some gold. You kids are sad and kind of dirty from your trip. And frankincense, of course, is a mystical property resin. It's a tree sap, basically, frankincense. And you can chew it like gum. And I have Muslim nieces and nephews, and their father is from Palestine, and they refer to that sap as Arab gum, they call it. And you can chew it. It's like wax. It'll just chew and chew and chew and chew and chew. And if you let frankincense sit in a mason jar, like the clumps, the little incense clumps that you buy and burn generally, you can pour those in the bottom of a mason jar with just some water, maybe an inch or so in a quart jar, and it'll make the water white and milky. And if you drink that water, not the best tasting concoction, however, if you drink that water, it has incredible healing properties. It heals the flesh. It supports the flesh's capability to heal. It flushes the system. Frankincense is a purifier and also has a resonation in it that works with all 7 of your chakras. So they bring this baby, this star child, who now we find out kind of formed from this light into this little glowing body going, hi, I'm a baby, and I talk. They give this child who now has a physical body a purifying element that is good for its body, that aligns its chakras. So they bring it something to support itself physically. And myrrh is cool. Myrrh is also a healing element, but you want to use it very sparingly because it can make you sick if you take a whole bunch of it. Yet myrrh is a huge resonant purifier, focusing on the third eye and the crown chakra. So they bring him a gift that strengthens spirituality. They bring him a gift that heals the physical body, and they help the parents out with a little gold. Keep him safe. Herod's crazy. Run. This is what we're looking at. So how do we bring gold to others? We are the Magi, right? We're the Magi. We represent the Magi. How do we bring? That gold can be beautiful music. That gold can be acts of service. That gold can be money. That gold can be hugs. That gold can be anything that provides stability for another, a pair of socks, leaving something on the tumbleweed tree. That's how we bring our gold to the world to support the Christ in others. Because what do, folks? We embody the Mother, Father, God, Christ consciousness. We embody God also. And we're taught this by Jesus repeatedly. So if I'm going to be the Magi, it means I bring acts of service to you. I bring gold to you in some way. Frankincense. How do we bring people frankincense? I could cook you some dinner. I could help you out with a massage. I could literally give you frankincense. You might not know what to do with it, but now you do because I told you about the mason jar. I could be someone who supports you physically in your walk. I could hold your hand sometimes when you're having a hard time because I am the Magi. How do I give you myrrh? How do I give you spiritual support? Well, I could show up here one Sunday a month. I could meet with you over coffee and let you cry on my shoulder about something deeply troubling to you. That is my myrrh I give you. spiritual support. I could pray for you. I could do some healing work with you. We are the Magi. How do you gift the Christ consciousness in everyone else 24/7? How do you? Because these people from China were miraculous, and they were mystics, and they were considered by later Christianity to be occultists, which is probably why they only show up in one book of the Bible at this point. Except it was really important for the ancient scholars to continue to prove that Herod was a rotten figure. So they might have left that in there just to show what a conniving dude he actually was. And Herod didn't necessarily believe in mystics either, but he would absolutely go to the lowest of the low to get what he needed. He is a great villain. Archetypal, in fact. So as you go forward in this Christmas season, understand that Christianity is one form of the Star Child, as is any other spiritual modality on this planet or elsewhere. We all share the promise of love, peace, deliverance, and light through a Mother, Father, God made of perfect light, biased toward none, accepting towards all. This is the promise of the Magi. We are the Magi. This is the promise to us. So there you have it. Jesus might have been an alien. The Magi could have been 100 people. It could have been 100 women. We don't even know. Yet the mystical capacity of how transcendent we are as human beings has just been so lost until now in humanity. I mean, this is what we're here to do, right? In this feminine time frame. We are here to come forward with the collective knowledge that we all channel. And we're here to bring through this knowledge and say, here's what we're here to do. We're here to raise the vibration of this planet. And I was so fascinated by the Magi story as a kid because they were so pervasive, but nobody knew anything about them. Why? Because they already had their own prophet. And so that gets a little awkward. So I love this. I love that we're all prophets. I love that we're all channels. I love that we are all the solution to the peace on the world. I love that we're all president because we weigh in on the quantum field. I love that we are all sometimes the hero and we're all sometimes the villain because we're sharing this field together. And during this solstice, we have the opportunity to go inward in that warm, puffy spot within us, into that inner cabin or that inner sanctuary. We have the opportunity to get in here and realize that no matter what's going on in the outside world, that outside world is 100% dependent on what we decide that it's going to be, because we are the mystics. And can you imagine the amount of energy that it took to suppress this information? I mean, to only make, now granted, you're writing about some phenomenal people claiming to have heard something from another prophet who came from a very far away place, and you're the church, and you're like, well, wait a second, we got to make sure that nobody really gets a hold of this because this is going to take the focus off the Jesus story. Well, really, it's a shame, because had we just let all of the amazing culture and voice of spirit come through people, we would have had an opportunity to see that, and as we're uncovering it now, the metaphysical movement, what started in the 70s is the New Age movement. We are getting a chance to see that all of these energies brought forward into this quantum field are all telling the same story. And it's such a magnificent story of focusing and centering within. And I love that because, we're going to go into this next year, and this next year is going to get a little bit crazy. January and February's energies going into this next year are going to roll out. And I keep getting the message that something highly transformational is coming in February. I don't know what it is, but it's this massive transformational and uplifting energy. And so if we begin to accept that we are the mystics, that we are the part of manifestation or miracle that is here to be able to usher in this new time frame, and that we've got our boots on the ground because we signed up for this tour of duty at this time, because we did. I mean, you did. If you're in a body, you signed up. It's the way it goes. I look at the whole picture and I am just awed. And that's what I am taking an opportunity to really focus on. And again, I really want to make sure to just put this one more time out there that this is not a religious podcast. It's not a religious message. And as somebody who does study religious books, mostly the Christian Bible, because that's how I was raised, but I went through a period of studying that greatly. And I do feel it's important to bring forward parts that have been buried, cut out, misinterpreted, and of course I don't do that here because that would be weird, right? Yet I wanted to share this information with you about how you too are the mystic because it's important. It's important. It goes well beyond Christmas. It goes beyond Hanukkah. It goes beyond Kwanzaa. It goes beyond Yule. It goes into the next year and the year after that and the year after that. And there is that quantum field that says, how do you wish it? That is the message I've been getting from Mother, Father, God in just droves. When you say, oh, I need a change in my life. Oh, I need help. And here comes this angelic message, or here comes the all message, the one that is all. That's what angels call what we perceive as God, which isn't exactly probably what God is or whatever. Yet the all, I keep hearing, how do you wish it? What do you wish it? We are so being taught in such a short amount of time right now that we can change particle matter. We can embody greatness. We can change water and make it clean. I mean, you think about, we'll pick on the Bible again. You think of Jesus turning water into wine. That is pure, straight up transfiguration. And they have talked to yogis in India who do this kind of work. Now, I don't know if they've changed water into wine, yet they've manifested apples out of midair. I mean, these are actual human beings that understand the fabric of spiritual physics in which we dwell. So and for those of you who have been writing in, telling me that you've been having a really hard time downloading the podcasts, we've done something about it. Here on Patreon, if you're on a PC and you right-click on the red file name that is below this podcast file, you can download the podcast, and it pops up a player-looking thing. And then on the player-looking thing, you have to click these weird little dots on the right-hand side of the player, and it gives you an option to download. But it really doesn't, it's either dots for some people it's a little download arrow sign. But this has been giving people a lot of problems depending on the computer platform people have. So just to make it easier for you all to actually take this podcast with you, because I want you to be able to share this podcast with friends and family. And yes, we are in Team Light in here. We are in a fantastic arena to be able to share ideas. We're troll-free in here, and it's really wonderful. And I also want to be able to get these messages to folks who want to hear them. And this is through emails that I've received from you folks saying, is it okay if I share the podcast? I really think, I know I pay for it, but I really think it's important to get this message out there. What we do in here and what you do by sponsoring this podcast with your monthly subscription is you enable these podcasts to go live. You enable me to get in here weekly to put these messages out. And that is so deeply appreciated. And I have so much gratitude for every single one of you. And I understand sometimes my production schedule gets a little in the way of podcasts getting out exactly weekly, and we are working around that right now and coming up with some great strategies for the new year so that doesn't get in the way. This podcast is a little bit late getting up, and that's because I was in Los Angeles and doing some filming and doing some great meetings and whatnot. And so when I get back, here we go. We're just cooking with gas now. So in the new year, I'm going to make sure that these podcasts are coming out in a more timely fashion for everybody. And we also have started an archives page, okay? And this is going to help with all of the issues that folks are having with downloading. So what we've decided to do, and this was through lots of input, a lot of you in here weighed in and said, well, I think we need to get these out there, and I can't download it off of Patreon, so let's get them someplace I can download them. So if you go to InPsightRadio, InPsightRadio, we are in the process right now of uploading the archives of the podcast. And those archives are going to get distributed to Apple iTunes and to Stitcher and to many platforms, Google, that actually allow a far more user-friendly experience for downloading. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is for the subscribers, for all of you in here, we are going to be actually saving that month's podcast for the subscribers. So the archives are going to be, in essence, a month behind. And if people want to catch up and be part of the Team Light community and just part of what we're doing in here, they can subscribe and they can catch up with the most current podcasts. So we are uploading those little guys as fast as we can get them up there. And if you check out InPsightRadio.com, you'll be able to easily download the podcast. It's hosted on Podbean right now, and it makes it just so much easier, gang, because it was breaking my heart how many of you could not download these podcasts. It just got too difficult because of the computer platforms. And I love our Patreon developers. I love the Patreon community. It's unless you're really savvy with computer stuff, it's not always super user-friendly. So here we go. InPsightRadio.com. You can grab any of those archives of what we've been listening to in here. Share them with family and friends. If you feel that these messages are important, pass them around, gang. We don't want to hog all the info. And as a gift to everybody rolling into this holiday season, I want to leave you with a song, because as if I haven't made a cheese sandwich 10 feet tall today in this podcast, we're going to leave you with a Christmas song. And I'll tell you a little quick backstory on this. In 2012, I was living in Los Angeles, and it was a very lonely period of my life. And I called my cousin Sean, and my cousin Sean, he's like my brother. If I had a brother, it'd be my cousin Sean. And I called my cousin Sean, and we used to have these long-distance parties. And so I would pour a cocktail, and he'd have a beer, and he'd be up in Port Orchard, Washington, which is up by Seattle. And I'd be down in LA, and I was just crying in my soup, talking about how sad I was and whatever. And Sean and I grew up singing together around a big grand piano in my mom's living room. And my grandpa was a carpenter, and he was a woodworker, and he ran a lumber yard. He owned a lumber yard and a hardware store. And it was the first one in Billings, actually, before the big box stores. And it was called Builder's Mart. Then it was called Tri-State Wood Products. And my grandpa was building on a house, a very, very influential and wealthy person in Billings years and years ago. And this person had a grand piano, a Steinway baby grand, that her father had given her from New York. And it was a 6-foot Steinway grand, and she had children, but the kids weren't interested in the piano. And my mom used to accompany my grandpa when he was building on this woman's cabinets. And my mom would sit down at the piano, and she would play the piano, and it was a big deal. And this woman, as it turns out, went and sat next to my mom one day after she had talked to my grandpa first about this. And my mom had a little bitty spinet piano in her house. And so this woman sat down next to my mom and said, "Do you like to play my piano?" And my mom was really shy. And my mom's a Cancer, so she was real shy. And she just nodded. And the woman said, "Would you like to have my piano?" And my mom, she was a little girl, and her eyes just got giant. And she just said, "Yes." And this woman gave my mother this beautiful 6-foot 1912 ivory-keyed Steinway grand piano because none of her kids wanted it, and it was very special to her. And she knew that my grandpa loved it and that my mom loved it. So I grew up playing this Steinway piano, and my cousin Sean and I and my whole Italian family, we grew up playing this massive Steinway just shoved into this 1950s cracker box house, okay, if you can imagine this. And we all loved it, and we all played, and we all stood around, and my entire family would sing, and we'd sing harmonies, and that's what we did when we went over to my grandpa's. We'd visit for a while, and then my mom or my uncle Mike or somebody would start playing piano, and we'd all get around and sing, and pretty soon we had this hallelujah chorus going on and Italian arias and everything. So I'm reminiscing about this with my cousin Sean, because I'm blue in 2012 around Christmas time. And of course, I'm thinking about singing Christmas carols. So Sean, who is just an unbelievably motivational person, he says to me, he goes, "Well, why, you've got that recording studio in your house." He says, "Why don't you just put up a microphone and every day, make it simple, make it raw. Put that microphone in the middle of the room and just pick up your guitar and just sing a Christmas carol." And I said, "Well, Sean, I don't really have anybody to share it with." He goes, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Post it online. Post it for free, and people can download it, and just keep it simple and do one a day. Maybe the 12 days coming up to Christmas." And I thought about it, and I thought, God, what a cool idea. I'd love to do that. Just this raw little dump of microphone in the middle of the room and sing a carol and just put it out there and spread the cheer. Because, keeping in mind, I can feel electromagnetic signatures coming through on, the computer. So I underwent this project in 2012 where every day I recorded, I recorded a Christmas song and I mixed it and gave it a quick master and threw it up online for free for people. Well, it was really kind of hard for me just to do one little guitar line because I tend to love to arrange things. So I got to really arranging these Christmas carols and composing for these Christmas carols. And Sean's only request with all of this was he wanted to sing "O Holy Night" with me. Now, this was really problematic because we were 1,500 miles apart. I'm in Los Angeles. He's up in the Seattle area. So at the time, I was a co-owner of a record label called Maurice the Fish Records. So I called my co-owner buddy, Raymond Hayden, up there. And, our friend Nick, who's an engineer, and Ray and my cousin Sean are really good friends because we did big events, music events. Sean is part owner of many golf courses, and one of them we would put music events on. So I said, hey, can you record my cousin Sean if I compose "O Holy Night" and I sing my part on it and leave his parts blank as just a guide track? Can I email that to Nick? And can you record Sean's vocal lines just separately and just Dropbox me the vocal lines? So that's what we did. So my cousin Sean and I got a chance to sing a Christmas carol together from 1,500 miles away. And when I got Sean's vocal lines in my Dropbox, my job was to bring them into the sound software and to blend them and to mix them with my vocals. So I'm sitting in LA and I'm super excited to hear Sean's vocals, and I upload his vocal tracks into the sound software. And the minute I hear his voice start coming through my monitor speakers in my studio in LA where I felt so lonely, I just started to bawl. I mean, I'm getting like super choked up even thinking about it. I'm not kidding. That's what a big deal it was, to be able to connect with my family that far away. And what I want to share with you in the spirit of connection is that song, "O Holy Night." Because not only are we talking about the star and what was the star and, was Jesus an alien? What was he? Yet I want to share this song with you because to me, it represents connecting from so far away in the most improbable way possible to create harmony with somebody that you can't even see 1,500 miles away. And I'm just so super proud of this this orchestral arrangement that I did. And you get to hear my cousin Sean sing, and you get to hear us sing together. And it's just awesome. So I want to wish all of you the most brilliant holiday season, the most brilliant Yule. I want to wish all of you the most beloved Christmas. And for all of you who celebrate all of these other amazing, beautiful, incredible holidays, I want to wish you the very, very best that I have to offer you. I'll see you next week.
Oh, holy night, the stars are brightly shining. It is the night of our dear Savior's birth. Long lay the world in sin and error pining till he appeared and the soul felt its worth. The thrill of hope, the weary world rejoices, for yonder breaks a new and glorious morn. Fall on your knees, oh, hear the
His gospel is peace. Chains shall ye break, for the slave is our brother, and in His name all oppression shall cease. Sweet hymns of joy in grateful chorus raise we, let all